Alright, good evening everyone. Welcome back to Compound Interesting. Today's video we're going to be having another look at Bitcoin, and I'm going to be explaining why I put the very last few cents of my entire available cash into Bitcoin right now, and why I think it is a better investment right now, and why it's less risky at 18,000 or whatever it is at this very second in comparison to when it was 10,000 a few months ago. Before I get going, I'd hugely appreciate if you could quickly smash the thumbs up button. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, and the YouTube algorithm doesn't really push my videos when they're about Bitcoin, unfortunately, but it's what I wanted to talk about, and I asked my subscribers and they said they were interested in Bitcoin videos, so I'm going to keep doing them because I've gotten a few comments about that. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because I'm not really playing by the YouTube algorithm, so you really have to hit that notification bell if you want to see my videos, because they're not going to get recommended very well because I just upload whatever the hell I want to talk about. So today's video we're talking about Bitcoin and why so basically I have a few €1,000 left to my entire net worth that I was saving up for a down payment on a mortgage, and I decided, okay, it's my very last bit of money, and I was like, okay, I should really keep some cash around. It's not a huge amount, but it's a sizable amount for my net worth. But I thought the safe idea would be to keep that for a down payment on a house. But now I've just decided, I've done this multiple times, but now I've decided I'm taking that very last bit of cash and I'm going to put it into Bitcoin. And I think that's actually the safer option than leaving it in cash, earning like 0.002% yield. And why do I think right now, or over the next few weeks, is actually one of the best risk to reward profiles for Bitcoin? I think the narrative has completely changed for Bitcoin over the last few months. And I think a lot of factors have confirmed the narrative for Bitcoin. So for the last few years, I've been in Bitcoin since 2017. I started buying it 3,500 back before the big bull run. Then I went all the way through the big bull run, and I went through all the way down to the crash, never selling anything, buying the whole way up, holding the whole way down, holding the whole way through 3 years. So you're holding this Bitcoin and it's so hard to hold it. You think maybe it's going to go to zero. You really believe in it, but there's so much less certainty about it because the price is low. No one is talking about it. Everyone has forgotten about it. And right now, the entire narrative has changed, and everyone's kind of waiting for the halving to come through and the effects of the halving to start coming through. And everyone's waiting for 2021 to see if the 4-year cycle theory would come to fruition. And it's shaping up that it actually is coming to fruition as we speak. And one of the main reasons that my investing hypothesis into Bitcoin is being confirmed is all the billionaires that have been buying Bitcoin recently. Very few people in the retail community have been talking about Bitcoin, and the retail community was who pumped the Bitcoin price back in 2017. But the only people really buying Bitcoin right now, or the majority of people who are buying Bitcoin right now, are billionaires and hedge funds. And that's what's driving the price for the most part at the moment, from fucking $6,000 this year all the way up to now 18 grand now. So you might have seen Michael Saylor, who is the CEO of MicroStrategy, a NASDAQ listed company, was the first publicly traded company that's completely not to do with Bitcoin to invest a portion, but he actually invested pretty much all their cash into Bitcoin. And now he's a complete Bitcoin fanatic and convert. We also have the likes of Dorsey, who's steadily been accumulating Bitcoin. 10 grand per week that Jack Dorsey has been buying into Bitcoin. But yeah, these guys are Bitcoin advocates. They're although it's great to see those two investors or CEOs investing their money into Bitcoin, it doesn't really confirm the hypothesis so much as the actual hedge fund billionaires that have been talking about and openly declaring that they're now buying Bitcoin. The likes of Paul Tudor Jones, the likes of Stanley Druckenmiller and Tim Draper, and even one of the richest men in Mexico, Ricardo Pliego, has let it be known that he owns a lot of Bitcoin. So for me, these investors, who are some of the best investors of all time, are buying Bitcoin. It confirms the hypothesis. And let me show you a statistic which is very interesting. Because everything is open on the blockchain, you can see how much every wallet address holds, and you can see who is transacting, buying and selling Bitcoin. You can see here that the people who are selling Bitcoin are the people who have less Bitcoin, so people with less than 1 Bitcoin or less than 0.1 Bitcoin. they're all the people who are selling Bitcoin, and you can see this in the blockchain. But everyone is selling Bitcoin except the people who have an enormous amount of Bitcoin, in the millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in their wallet. They're the people who are buying Bitcoin at the moment. So some people think that people with large bankrolls are smart money. Although I don't really agree with that narrative, I do know that these bigger investors, they're not so likely to sell if there's a big crash. They're probably holding on to this as an inflationary hedge for the long term. Maybe they'll sell a little bit of it, but they're less likely to sell than retail investors if the price goes up a lot or down a lot. Apart from billionaires and hedge funds buying up Bitcoin, another factor that has confirmed my hypothesis about Bitcoin, or helped to confirm or at least reduce the risk with Bitcoin, in my opinion, is all the new onboarding ramps and all the new companies that are allowing the transaction of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, the likes of PayPal. And now we can see, and Grayscale, we can see consumers on Cash App and PayPal combined are buying more than the freshly minted supply of Bitcoin that is coming into the market. So just PayPal and the Cash App retail investors are buying more than the freshly mined Bitcoin that is being mined every 10 minutes. Similarly, the demand from Grayscale, people who are buying Bitcoin through Grayscale, is vastly more than the fresh supply of Bitcoin. So Michael Saylor has said that Bitcoin is the only place you can store your wealth or preserve your wealth for the next 100 years if you want to actually preserve your wealth. Or maybe you can put it in tech stocks, but tech stocks have to be able to grow their cash flows faster than the inflation rate of freshly minted US dollars, which this year was 20% inflation rate, as in 20% of all US dollars were printed this year. So companies have to grow their cash flows by 20% this year just to keep up with the real value of the inflation rate. But maybe from the next few years it'll be 7% or 8%. So this is very, very difficult. And you're now, if you want to buy into the S&P 500 or into tech and growth stocks, you're looking at all-time highs and extremely high price multiples for all these stocks and indexes. However, Bitcoin is still in its infancy, so has enormous room to grow, and has, over a long enough time period, absolutely destroyed the Fed's balance sheet and every other asset in the entire world. It is the best performing asset of human history. People might say, okay, why don't you put it into gold or real estate? So let's touch on gold first. If gold prices were to increase drastically, the mining output would increase drastically along with it. So if gold prices went up to 10,000, you can be sure that gold mining capabilities will probably increase in line, probably proportionally to that amount. So probably a 10x in gold mining production. So eventually it's not going to really give you enormous gains. However, Bitcoin has an inelastic supply, meaning that no matter how much energy output you put into mining the Bitcoin network, the difficulty to mine a Bitcoin will adjust every 2 weeks. So it'll become more difficult to mine. So that means that the exact same number of Bitcoin will be mined over a 1 year period, let's say, no matter how much energy is put into mining. So everyone knows exactly how many Bitcoin are going to be created this week, this month, this year, this decade, etc., etc. It's like when oil prices went to $100, fracking was invented because people were like, okay, oil is worth so much money now. We really have to get some mad new technology to be able to find more oil. So that's how fracking came about. Human ingenuity will always find a way to extract value from the world. However, like I mentioned, with Bitcoin, it doesn't matter how much human ingenuity goes into creating better computers. Eventually, the difficulty will adjust and the same amount of Bitcoin will be created. So no matter how much the demand increases, the supply won't increase proportionally to that. Then people say, okay, but gold is way more established. Bitcoin hasn't proved itself to be a good store of value. But Bitcoin is 10 times superior than gold in many, many fronts. So I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to get into it. I'll link videos about that here. But here's a tweet that I put up kind of explaining my thoughts on this. So gold's one advantage over Bitcoin is that it's older and more established. In the same way that sending letters in the post is older and more established than sending emails on the internet. So that's what I think about that argument. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me there at Emil Pryor, but I'm going to start tweeting on it a little bit. So if you want to follow me, I'm going to start, going for it a bit. Might be a bit of fun to get more of a community together. Then people say, okay, but Bitcoin is just going to be another Netscape or another MySpace, something that's, it's the first one, but then something better comes along and takes its place. What I say to this is what I took from Michael Saylor. So I'm going to leave one of my favorite interviews that Michael Saylor did. So he's the CEO who invested $500 million worth of his company's money into Bitcoin, as well as a similar amount of his own personal money into Bitcoin as well. But really, really interesting interviews. He's done like literally dozens of interviews on YouTube. Really, really interesting guy. But I'll link one of my favorite interviews talking about Bitcoin in the description box for you. But basically what he said is that once the market basically has chosen Bitcoin, like Netscape was like $5 billion in market cap when Google came along and took its place. Similarly with MySpace, they never got to hundreds of $billions in market cap. But things like Google, Facebook, Apple, once you reach $100 billion in market cap in a winner takes all scenario, that means the market has chosen the winner. The market has chosen the winner, and the winner is Bitcoin for store of value, cryptocurrency store of value. It's now $350 billion in market cap. The only way a cryptocurrency could take its place is if it was 10 times better. Although, to be 10 times better than Bitcoin, you'll need a network that's 10 times bigger, and you'll need security that's 10 times bigger. Bitcoin has the strongest computer network in the entire world, the strongest security in the entire world, the most amount of hashing power behind it. People are scared of Bitcoin copycats, but it would be like asking everyone who knows how to play chess, oh, come play my rule set of chess, so it's slightly different and it's slightly better. Are you going to get everyone to stop playing this version of chess? No, obviously not. The network has been made, the network has been chosen, and the winner is Bitcoin for the store of value, large transaction, and blockchain use case. Although there will be other use cases in blockchain, Bitcoin has the monetary use case. So it's been decided, so I wouldn't worry about that personally. The other nice thing about Bitcoin is if you buy Bitcoin, you're voting with your dollars or you're voting with your euros for freedom. You're voting for something that's not controlled by the government. You're voting for something that's controlled decentrally by people. It's powered by the people for the people. That's so cringy, but it's actually kind of true. We can see all the things that have gone wrong since the US left the gold standard in 1971, and you've experienced this yourself. I'm a 24-year-old and I can't see myself being able to buy a house for the next 5 years until I'm extraordinarily wealthy, or anyone in my friend group. It's going to be extraordinarily difficult for them to buy a house. However, for my parents, it was much easier. Just like for their parents, it was much easier. The reason is GDP is growing up, but wages are staying the same. We can see this this is a great website. You can see all the things that have gone wrong since we broke from the gold standard in 1971. So I really encourage you to check out this website, What the Hell Happened, or What the F Happened in 1971. I'll link it in the description. There's so many surprising things that have gotten worse since we broke away from the gold standard. So the hope is to get to a Bitcoin standard where real money is used, something that cannot be created at whim by the government and given to bailing out banks or to fund wars or to fund military spending, etc., etc. So a lot of people think that it's a binary option for Bitcoin. Either it becomes a Bitcoin global world reserve currency, Bitcoin is a Bitcoin standard across the world, or it goes to zero. I don't really think that's the only option. I think Bitcoin could supplement gold or replace gold in a kind of store of value sense for the next 50 years, next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, because of all the advantages it has over gold, which I've talked about in other videos. So it's much more divisible, much more transportable, immutable, etc., etc. So I think this has a very high likelihood, and I think this debt bubble that we're in can go on a lot longer than people think. So this could go on for another 40 years until eventually the US dollar collapses, like it has to. If you just keep inflating the money supply, eventually it's going to pop. But people will look to store their value somewhere, and Bitcoin is by far the best choice. in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, just like all the billionaires that I've mentioned. So if Bitcoin were to get to the market cap of gold, I'm sure you've heard this statistic before, but the price would be $600,000 because it's so small in comparison to gold's market cap. So $600,000 per Bitcoin. So what's that, at 40x or something? It's 20,000 now, 30x. So personally, I think that has a really high likelihood of happening. I think the global Bitcoin standard is less likely to happen. So I think we have to get to that gold market cap first. I think that's should really be the first target, and then we can start talking about Bitcoin becoming the global reserve currency. But I think within a decade, I could easily see Bitcoin at 600,000 per Bitcoin in real terms for right now. So personally, I think Bitcoin is the best risk to reward investment I've ever seen. I've only been investing for a few years, but for me, Bitcoin, that's why those are all the reasons why I'm putting my last bit of cash into Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin's already by far my largest position. Obviously, none of this is financial advice. You can't just watch a video on YouTube and put your life savings into Bitcoin. I'll leave plenty of links to places you can learn about Bitcoin more, but I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin more and more over the coming few months because I can really see Bitcoin doing extraordinarily well in 2021. A price target anywhere from 100 to 300,000 by the end of next year, I think is more than possible, and actually probably likely, in my humble opinion, not financial advice. I really hope you enjoyed this video from a Bitcoin moon boy. If you did, I'd hugely appreciate it if you could smash the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. I really hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and I hope I brought you some value and help make your investing decisions easier. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Goodbye.